In 1998, David Campbell gave a scientific lecture talking about how things come and go, but how two things remain constant at the TAVI: the coexistence of two theoretical models for doing therapy. In his opening to the talk, he suggested that any family or staff group needs diversity and heterogeneity to survive. And without that, new thinking would not emerge. As I rattle through these decades, I'm very aware of privileging the stories that I like, the papers that I like, rather than the full range of everything that happened within the systemic discipline at the TAVI, such as the reality of having 12 minutes to talk. In the 1990s, staff at the TAVI got very interested in gender, in culture, in power, in gender identity. Gender Identity Development Service took off with Bernadette Wren's thesis. Clearly described some of the early thinking about that work. Charlotte and Gwyn's book came from a second order cybernetic perspective, using postmodernism, feminism, narrative and discourse studies, drawing on and showing the importance of an interactional understanding and a sensitivity to context. They really focused on how gender and power showed itself in the idea of family and in the ways in which families work. Around this time, although family therapists had taken an early and very engaged approach to look at issues of discrimination and prejudice, this was seen as slightly slow to permeate into trainings, and a survey of British family therapists that was reported in the early 2000s found that family therapists didn't feel particularly equipped to deal with lesbian and gay clients. Levels of training on lesbian and gay issues and the therapist's preferred systemic model weren't taught sufficiently, according to this survey. And I think I mentioned this survey because I think it's important to show that as a profession, as a discipline, over decades, we've tried to figure out what we're doing well and what we're not. This most recent decade, I describe as a period of continuity and change, working with gay families, expanding our gender services, working across disciplines in multidisciplinary teams and really sharing and honing our ideas. I won't read through the list of theoretical approaches that I think have influenced us hugely in this discipline and in previous ones, but yeah, they're there. We've also, as the Tavistock has done over decades, engaged with the media, and I think some of the outputs in this decade, for example, the Kids on the Edge documentary really showed how the Tavistock was at the forefront of thinking about what is family, how families are made, how family shapes change over time. The genogram is a key idea and tool of practice for family therapists. We used to have the idea that the therapist defined what a genogram looked like, that circles were for males and, circles were for females and squares were for males. Triangles were for unborn infants that we didn't yet know the gender of. Over time and over change, the practice has changed. We're now much more likely to ask a family how they would like to be defined when we draw a genogram. We use a much broader variety of symbols when we are trying to collaborate with families to represent issues of gender. However, the importance of the genogram in opening up conversations about intergenerational patterns and about patterns within families remains absolutely central.